What's the most strangely unique punishment you ever received as a kid? How bad was it? Removed. He should have secretly taken one piece that would have been a real punishment. Whoa. Easy there, Satan. He stood at the door and he listened with pride. Oh, where can it be? Came a voice from inside. It could be. It should be. It has to be here. It can't simply vanish. It can't disappear. I want it, it muttered. I need it, it said. Oh, why can't I find it? It whispered with dread. He listened. He'd laid the most heinous of traps. But soon he would end it. Tomorrow, perhaps. You're the only reason I read comments. You should publish a book of poems instant by day one. I desperately wanted to order WrestleMania. I was a massive Hulk Hogan fan. Well, I was acting like a little shit and wouldn't stop. So, my dad ordered the WrestleMania pay-per-view. He sat in the living room and watched it and made me sit in the other room where I could just barely hear it but couldn't see it. He watched the whole damn thing and didn't let me move or ever see the screen. It was just effing brutal. Edit. Lots of softies in here saying this is bad parenting. Calm down. Dad gave me the chance to be better. I didn't listen. I had this shit coming. Is your dad Steve Austin? 'Cause that's stone cold. And though I strained with all my might, I could not hear the fight. Could not join the fun. He'd said, one day you'll thank me, son. You must be wise. You must be brave. You have to learn to just behave. I strained to hear with all I had. I whispered softly, single quote, asterisk, fuck you, Dad, asterisk. In elementary school we had this one really strict teacher that would make us T-pose in the back of the room if we were being disruptive. Every one of us scoffed at the idea until about a minute in and your arms are killing you. Very effective punishment. The Australian Army calls this standing at full dress. It is a pretty exhausting punishment. Not sure how unique it was, but we would always be grounded from our rooms not to our rooms. It was the worst. You don't realize how much is in your room until you aren't allowed to go in it. Shit, my parents has something similar. We would be grounded from the house for the day if it was during a break. It really sucked in the summer. They just wanted to fucking peace. When I was 5 or 6, deaf old enough to know better, I bit my older sister directly on the stomach. Left top and bottom teeth imprints. It wasn't something minor. Mom grabbed a dog collar and leash, then tied me to a doorknob for several hours. If you act like a dog, you get treated like a dog. I hope this doesn't awaken anything in me. 5 minutes later, you can never keep a wolf like me on a leash. Howls at the moon. Removed. If I had found a bird cage as a kid, I'd have probably put it on my head and walked around my neighborhood by choice. Essay writing. My dad is a graduate school professor and he made us write essays about what we had done wrong, why it was wrong, and what we should have done instead. We had to cite sources and use outside information, research. My dad would then read and correct the content and grammar of the essays until they were deemed satisfactory. We were basically grounded until the essay was complete and considered good enough. The worse the punishment, the longer the essay and the harder he critiqued it. For example, you left the dishes in the sink after being told way too many times. Pretty soon you were writing a short essay about germs and proper food handling, etc. I remember specifically getting caught drinking in the garage when I was 16. My dad was pissed and I had to write a 20-page essay about what the consequences of teenage drinking were to my 16-year-old brain. How much legal trouble I could have gotten into, and how much legal trouble my parents could have gotten into for allowing teenage drinking. Huge pain, but it got us thinking about topics we usually didn't think too in-depth about. And it was better than having my parents yell and scream "Monsieur" usually by the end of the essay. Writing process, both parties would have chilled out and a calm discussion would follow. You wrote this really well. We used to do this, too. We also had to write proposals for things we wanted. For example, when I wanted to go on birth control, I had to submit a written proposal on why I should be able to, and the logistics involved definitely got us thinking. My parents didn't know what to do with me. I was being a prick. So they took literally everything out of my room, including my bed. It was weird, and I remember sitting in the corner with my teddy. I was hiding it so they wouldn't take that too. I was the firstborn, so they've learned. Same. A little less intense, still had furniture, but no toys, books. Also, if firstborn, they were way more lax with my brother. Too lax emo. But maybe they were overcompensating for me. I was also made to sit in a chair in the living room for 3 days. After school time, when I was really young, because my parents were trying to get my brother or I to confess to drawing on the kitchen table. It was my brother. But I 100% see how brainwashing can work, because by the end of the joint punishment, I was second-guessing myself and my memories. When I was a kid, my parents got rid of everything except my desk and bed because I was refusing to clean my room. When I got home from school, I asked my dad where my stuff was. He said, "We threw it out." He said. I looked right at him and said, "Oh well. You paid for it?" When I was a kid, anytime my grandfather heard me say I was bored, he'd make me read the newspaper next to "Hi Monsieur" after an hour or so, that I would no longer be bored. I miss him every time I see a newspaper. That doesn't seem like it's settled as a punishment to you. The first few minutes were not fun at all. After a while, I just kinda got into it. But it was his way to make me a better kid person. A friend of mine recently told me that his mom used to have him kneel on uncooked rice when he did something wrong. Sounds miserable if you ask me. When I was a kid and at my grandparents' place, whenever I was sick, I had to swallow a tablespoonful of whiskey. Made me throw up every time. It didn't matter what the medical problem was. I got a tablespoon of whiskey. Poison ivy? Whiskey. Flu? Whiskey. Food poisoning? Whiskey. Fell out of a tree and scrapped myself up real bad? Whiskey. I think I was punished for being weak. There was no winning. If Grandma or Grandpa suspected that I wasn't feeling 100%, they'd straight out ask me what was wrong. And I had to say something or risk worse punishments. I threw a ton of glitter on my brother when he was in the bathtub. My parents bought a giant bag of glitter and dumped it on my bed. They made me count it and would not give me my phone or laptop back until I did. In Catholic school, a nun made me go out back in the convent and cut her grass with a pair of scissors. My thumbs were bruised for a week and hurt for days. How the fuck did they expect you to count glitter? Even better, what kept you from lying? It's not like they would count it and prove you wrong. It was probably one of those bags that holds 5,450 glits. A glit, of course, is 1 grain of glitter. My boyfriend always buys the bag of 5,450 glits because it's only 30 more than the bag of 3,690 glits. But every time, sure enough, the party is over and we have 1,760 extra glits sitting around, turning sour. I am the glit commander. Bit of backstory. For many years, my mother was having an affair with a married man. Every weekend we could go to sleazy motels where my brother and I would stay in a room with his daughter while he and my mother shacked up for the weekend in another room. Backstory Part 2. As a child, I was obsessed with Florida. Always wanted to go there. It was my dream. Main story. One week in the summer I was with my grandma. I was around 10. My cousins from out of town were also coming to stay. I was super excited. My mother calls me at Grandma's house and the following conversation takes place. "Mom, do you want to go with us this weekend?" Me, "Where to?" Mom, "The hotel." Like always. Me, "No, I want to hang out with so-and-so cousins." And Grandma, "Mom, okay." Fast forward 1 week and she picks me up from Grandma's. My little brother starts telling how they went to Florida. I think he is a dumb kid making up stories, so I tell him to shut up. "No," he says. "We went to Florida." My mother corroborates his story. I start to cry and ask why she didn't tell me they were going to Florida. She then informs me that her boyfriend, later husband, decided that since I would rather see my cousins and grandma than spend time with him, that my punishment was I didn't get to go to Florida. I was devastated. Yes, there's quite a long list of every kind of abuse there is. And I spent a lot of years in therapy. He is dead and I have had no contact with my mother for close to 20 years. 6 months ago I moved to Florida. I live a mile from the beach. I'm happier than I've ever been. Edit. Thank you so much for all the kind words and for the silver and gold. Congratulations on moving to Florida. The first time this was said, not sarcastically, lol. I was a 16-year-old girl. We had 4 cats. It was my job to care for them because I wanted them secure. But I'd often forget to clean the litter boxes and make someone else do it because it stunk and it was gross. Especially when one of the cats were sick. I'd been warned about it a couple times, but kept doing it. One day when I was at school, my mom moved all the litter boxes into my bedroom. Monsieur, she replaced the litter with a kind that doesn't reduce odor at all. She specifically told me I was not allowed to open windows and I had to sleep in there. Couldn't go to sleep on the couch. Oh my god, it doesn't sound like much, but it was so bad. I'd rather be spanked. It lasted for a week before she let me move them back out into the laundry room again. When I was a kid, like preteen, I still often slept in my mom's king-sized bed. Single parent, only child. It didn't seem that weird. Sometimes we shared. Sometimes she slept in my single. Whatever. Just setting the tone. At one point, she started seeing some guy and he came over unexpectedly to spend the night. She was super drunk. He probably was too tbh. And she obviously wanted me out of her bed. So, middle of the night on a weeknight, she comes rampaging up the stairs and starts screaming at me for not sleeping in my own room and threatening to beat me senseless if I don't move immediately. I'm full on sleeping at this point. Not a gentle waker. I'm a grumpy, emotional preteen and she's a chronic alcoholic, so our relationship isn't great. She starts making these demands and on the fight-or-flight spectrum I prepare for war. I don't really know the how or why of the details, but I guess the boyfriend had been on the dike earlier that day and come across, of all things, a dead heron, and being the strange, drunk man he was, rather than leave this majestic dead thing in its place to decompose as nature intended, he cut off one of its wings to bring home to my mama as some sort of trophy. Unbeknownst to me, this item became the threat she used next when I refused to relocate sleeping spaces. She truly did attempt to beat me senseless with the severed wing of a very large bird. I entered foster care not 6 months later. That update thing people do. Thanks a lot to everyone for the support and encouragement. I didn't expect to wake up to this and it's been super encouraging to read all your kind words. I pay a guy $50 per session to listen to my stories and here you all are doing it for free. I can't keep up with responding to everyone, but I've read every comment and done my best. I loved reading as a kid. My father realized sending me to my room wasn't a punishment. My father is an English professor. He got good. After a while, my punishment wasn't go to my room. It was watch C-SPAN. I would have to watch politics for hours. And we would talk about it. I was one of the few, if only 12-year-olds who could talk about the Senate, the House, who is trying to push through what. As a grown-up now, I'm thankful. As a kid, I was stunned. How did he come up with something so anti-useful? Greater than after a while. My punishment wasn't go to my room. It was watch C-SPAN. Fuck me. I would have died halfway through. My mom was always taking my books away because I'd read instead of doing my homework. Also, my mom would go through the trash and punish me based on what I ate. In middle school, my parents took all my makeup away from me because I hated leaving the house. Without it, I got a C in math in 8th grade and there was nothing left to take away, so my parents decided I Would move in with my dad and go to a different high school than all my friends as a punishment. I'm 22 and have been paying my own phone bill for 4 years, but my mom still tries to take my phone away from me if she feels like I'm on it too much. Bro, you need to move TF out. Luckily I've been moved out since I was 18. I even moved to a different state recently and finally feel at peace lol. How is she gonna take your phone then? Question mark. Long arms. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day.